Tom, that's very gracious of you, very kind of you. I apologize that the viewing is not going to be that great, but I do have a lot of good pictures of insects, so we'll just have to do our best to try to see them. So position yourself where you feel you're going to get the best view. And I can see if I stand there, my shadow's on the screen. So, okay. Well, as was mentioned, I was asked to talk about beneficial insects and how, as a home gardener, you can try to enhance the beneficial natural services, free services of these insects to help you with combating problems in your garden. So that's what we're going to talk about. So again, it's too bad. It's not very, doesn't look anything like it did in the darker opera house over there. I apologize. But when you're thinking about your garden, the attractive garden in your mind's eye, so it's hard to see, but this is actually the eye of a human over here. When you're thinking about the things that you want to put in your garden, you're thinking about a lot of different things. The functionality of that, whether you're growing flowers or vegetables, whatever it is, the purpose of your garden. You're thinking about maybe often the visual appearance, how it looks to you in your mind's eye, what kinds of activities you want to have there, if you want to use it as a garden to host parties in, the functionality, the diversity, the appearance. Those are the things that are important to you. If you are an insect, and that's what, we've totally lost it now. Okay. Think we got unplugged? Think we got unplugged?
Where's the other one?
No, we've lost all pictures. Oh, that's okay. Well, I think once I get going here, I'll be all right. Thank you, though. You're very kind. Yeah. Well, I grew up in Southern California. Anything that's lower than about 80 degrees is cold to me. Montclair. So Claremont, Ontario, Pomona.
I was born in Pomona.
Okay. Yep. I was born in the Pomona Hospital.
I was too. So. Compare years. That's where I was born.
So we're from the same area. I was a little later than that, but yeah. But I haven't lived there in a long time, so. Okay. So, yeah, but no, I'm fine really. But thank you for the. Well, we can do something different. Because really, what I wanted to talk about really depends on having some images to look at. So, yeah. Yeah. I'll go get it. I didn't bring a sweet net, so go get a sweet net, and we'll go and get some live insects and look at them instead. Nope. It's starting back up. Now there is some. It somehow got turned off, and then. Aha.
Now it's back on again.
Yeah.
You're just going to have to stay here.
Right
there.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you accidentally get the remote control for this instead of that. That's the remote for that.
I just, yeah.
As you click that, it went on.
It went away. Okay. Well, the picture quality is so poor anyway, but at least it gives me, it's a little, I can look at it. So if you can sit yourself where you can see the computer screen, you'll get a better view there. And there's that little strange thing right there, whatever that is. Okay. It's all about being close, being close proximity, being good friends. Okay. So, all right. So, if you were an insect and looking at a garden and deciding whether that was something that interested you. So up here I have a picture of an insect eye, or insect head. It's a little hard to see. And particularly if you were an insect that was a predator or a parasitoid where you were looking for other insects to eat, the things that would be important to you. Hey, that's better. At least you can see something there. is you would want to have some diversity of plants. And the reason for that is that you'd want to have a choice, because you know that there's going to be certain kinds of prey, of insects on different kinds of plants. And so if it's a whole monoculture of just corn, if you were interested in insects on corn, that was good, but you might want a diversity. And so having a diverse garden is very important. Another important thing, and this is something that we desire as gardeners often, is to have continuous bloom. So have different plants blooming throughout the season so that you have bloom from as early as you can get it going in the spring through the fall, and have different things blooming. It's also important that you have plants that are providing what we call quality nectar and pollen. And I'm going to talk about this more in just a moment and tell you what kinds of plants those are. Because a lot of these insects, they need to have a sugar source. That's where nectar has carbohydrates, sugar in it. And they need some protein. So pollen has protein, and then plus they're often eating these other insects that they're getting protein from as well. But they have to have this diverse diet. They need places to hide, shelter. They need a variety of insect prey, as I just mentioned. And another thing that a lot of people don't realize is a lot of insects need access to water. They need access to mud if they use mud at all in building their homes. And so you have to have this kind of variety of things in your garden to attract these beneficial insects. Okay, so I wanted to do myth busting. That's a popular kind of thing these days, about misconceptions about biological control in the garden. And when you say biocontrol, what most people think of is that you go to a store that sells ladybugs or praying mantids or something like that, and you buy them, and you take them home and you release them in your garden. But actually, that is not the best way to implement biocontrol in your home garden, and that's what we're going to talk about here. What you're doing there is you're taking insects that were collected elsewhere, so they may not even be native here, and then you're putting them in your environment, which is not where they came from, and they may or may not be of a real benefit to you. You're much better off trying to attract and conserve the ones that are already here. And that's, again, what we're going to spend the bulk of the time on. A lot of these insects, after you release them in your garden, they don't stay there very long. The lady beetles that are purchased, they're collected during the winter months, and they're kept in a refrigerator and chilled until they get to your garden and you release them, and they're in a mode to disperse. They came from the high elevation of the Sierra Mountains in California, and they're looking for the San Joaquin Valley. They're not looking for your garden. And so a lot of times these insects do not stay where you put them, and you basically have wasted your money. Also, the other thing that a lot of gardeners don't realize is that the other practices, the other things you're doing in your garden are actually what matter most. And so, you know, you can release all the beneficial insects you want, but if you're not doing the other things to keep them there and take care of them, it's a waste of money. Okay, so I like to use the term functional biological control. This is an approach where you're trying to make these function and work properly and do the kinds of, these free services that we desire from them. So we want to rely on our native natural enemies, the ones that are already here. Most of these are pretty small in body size, and so again, as we go through these different groups and talk about them, some of them are larger, like lady beetles and some ambush bugs, but many of them are dinky, 1/4 of an inch and less in size. And so we're trying to conserve these by avoiding chemicals that are going to kill them off, so avoiding those more toxic things, and we'll talk about that. You want to maintain this diverse plant environment that has flowers blooming at different times, avoid monocultures, large sections of monocultures. You want some continuity in space and time to have the resources to keep these insects there. You want to cultivate plants that provide good quality nectar and pollen. I've said that several times. On the next slide, I'm going to show you what those kinds of plants are. And you do need to tolerate some of the plant feeding, the herbivorous insects, because obviously if you don't have anything for them to eat, they're not going to stay there very long. So it's a balance. You don't want too many, but you know, a few aphids around is not going to be a problem. And so you need a hand lens to see a lot of these guys because they're pretty small. Okay, so a lot of what I'm saying has also related to the native pollinators. And so Dr. Jim Kane is giving lectures on native pollinators here, and so I'm not going to go into detail, but being aware that a lot of these native pollinators, they nest in the ground, they nest in twigs, they rely on good quality nectar and pollen as well. So everything that we're doing to encourage these beneficial insects are things that we're doing to also help our native pollinators. So they go hand in hand. Okay, so we talked about protein. Insect prey, pollen, bird droppings have a lot of ammonia in it. They're a great source of protein, and a lot of insects take advantage of that. They need carbohydrates, so nectar that has a good sugar quality in it. Extrafloral plant nectaries, who's familiar with those? Have you heard that term before? Extrafloral plant nectaries? These are nectaries on plants that aren't in the flowers. Have you ever noticed plants that exude some sticky stuff? Have you ever grown orchids? Orchids have a lot of extrafloral nectaries. Have you ever grown peach or cherry trees and seen little droplets of sticky stuff right around where the leaf petiole, the petiole attaches to the twig? Those are extrafloral nectaries. So quite a few different plants produce nectar in other places besides just pollen. And so insects take advantage of feeding on that. Aphid honeydew. You guys know what aphid honeydew is? Ever had aphids and it drips down that sticky stuff on maples this year? I remember at the Summerfest here in Logan, a lot of the vendors were complaining about all the, they called it plant tree sap on their wares that they had out on their displays, and it was the honeydew from the maple aphids that was causing that. Okay, and as we mentioned, shelter and varied habitat. So again, you can't see these photos very well, but what kind of plants provide good quality nectar and pollen? We're talking about wildflowers, we're talking about herbs, and we're talking about species of plants that haven't been overly selected for different features instead of nectar and pollen. So I have my one example I always rely on as the epitome of a flower that is beautiful and you see grown here a lot because of its large size and long bloom period, but it has zilcho nectar and pollen, and that is petunia. Do you ever see a bee on a petunia? Not very often. There's just nothing there for, they might visit it to think, oh, and then they're, darn, nothing here. So where do you see bees, and where do you see, and I'm going to show you some insects that I know you have probably seen on flowers before too, some of these beneficial insects. Where do you see them? What kind of flowers?
Sedum.
Russian sage is a great one. Lavender. Sedum. Okay. A lot of herbs. If you let your cilantro go to flower, you will get a buku of, I'm show you these hoverflies. You might have thought they were little bees, but they're actually hoverflies. So those are the kinds of flowers that provide attractive quality nectar and pollen. And so I'm not downing petunias. They serve a role, but if you want to have a good pollinator and natural enemy garden, petunias are not part of that, okay? Does that make sense? Okay, so on our website, which I'm going to show you in just a moment, to show you the link to our website where we have all of our resources, we have this great fact sheet called Gardening for Native Bees, and Dr. Jim Kane is one of the authors on this. And he's got these great tables in there that are loaded with suggestions for plants that are attractive to native pollinators. So these same plants are attractive to beneficial insects. So you can utilize this fact sheet as a guide for picking plants that you might want to consider to grow in your flower beds and garden. Okay, there's three main groups of insects that are natural enemies. Okay, the first group, which is the largest one, are the predators. And so a predator kills, eats, consumes two or more individuals over its lifespan. So it's going to be eating multiple insects to get enough protein to survive. And you can't see the picture very well on the left, but it's a robber fly that has an insect in its grasp and it's eating it. Okay, so that's a predator, and there's a lot of different insect predators out there we're going to talk about. The next group is a parasitoid, and this is a specialized group of parasites, insects that lay their eggs in or on, and then their larvae feed on one insect host during its lifetime, and it kills that insect in the process. So again, you can't see it very well, but this is an aphid that has a little wasp coming out of its back. So it's a wasp that parasitizes an aphid. And so it kills the host in the process. And these are the kinds of The parasitoids are what we desire in our garden because they're very beneficial for helping us control the plant pests. The last group there is a bigger group called parasites, of which parasitoids are a related group. But a parasite feeds in or on its host. In this case, again, you can't see it all, but this is a honeybee that has a varroa mite stuck on its back. So the honeybee, of course, is a beneficial insect that has a parasite on it. But usually the parasite does not kill the host in its lifetime. It may stress the host, and if there's multiple parasites on it, it may ultimately, lead to the demise of the insect or the human, in the case of human parasites. But usually they don't kill it outright, and they can live on multiple different individuals to complete their life cycle. Okay, so this is just a group photo of some of the common beneficial insects that we'll see in our gardens. And I'm going to go through these different groups. And I think rather than spending time here, because they're kind of small and hard to see with this lighting, that we'll just go through the different groups. So lady beetles or ladybugs are one of the most commonly recognized group of beneficial insects. And so there are both native lady beetles that we were just talking about, and there are introduced species of lady beetles. So over on the right here, this far right lower picture, this is the introduced Asian multicolored lady beetle. It hasn't been here in Utah too long, but if you've spent any time in the east or the Midwestern United States, you would be well introduced to this insect, especially if you spent the winter there, because these guys come in and congregate in your window sills and on your walls and cracks and crevices over the winter, and they've actually become a pest. And they have a little orange exudate that comes out of them, and it can stain, make their windowsill really nasty. They, during the summer, do feed on aphids, and so they can be a benefit. But they're an introduced lady beetle that's actually now displacing some of our native lady beetles. So overall, it's not necessarily a good one to have. On the left are our native species, and the one that you may be most familiar with is this one here. It's called the convergent lady beetle. It has two white lines right behind its head that converge, and that's where it gets its name. And so some of these lady beetles are very prey specific. Some are generalists, but the types of insects they feed on are aphids, scales, mealybugs. So small, soft-bodied insects are what they like to eat. And some of these like to live in the trees, and some are more on the ground plants, the forbs on the ground. The life cycle of the lady beetle, it's hard to see, but the adult lays these eggs. They're orange in color, and they can be in little clusters. And they look like a little bit like footballs that stand upright on the end. And then the larva hatches out, and the larva is this one right here. And they are the real voracious stage of the lady beetle. And they're like the teenager that's just starving all the time, and they're just eating, eating, eating. So this is the stage that really helps you with biological control. And then this lower right, you can't see too well, is the pupa. And these, they stick themselves onto the plant leaf or stem, or you might find them stuck to the side of a building or a fence when you have high numbers of them. And a lot of times I get calls about these. People want to know what this strange, they think it's an insect, but it's not moving, and it looks really odd, and they want to know what pest is and what they can do about it. And when I tell them it's a lady beetle pupa, then they are much relieved to know that it's a beneficial. So the good thing about lady beetles is that both the adults and the larvae feed, and so they can eat a lot of insect prey throughout their life cycle. So a very good one. Okay, another group that probably most people have seen, maybe they don't know the name, but they may have seen them, are the lacewings. And there are two main types of lacewings. They're over on your left are the green lacewings, and you see these very commonly at your porch light on a summer night. They have the large, lacy-looking green wings, as their name suggests. And then right below the adult, a little hard to see, are the eggs, and these are laid on stalks. And they're laid in clusters. Have you ever come across a leaf or something that has this little group of what look like little hairs sticking up with little structures on the end? Those are the lacewing eggs. And they lay them on stalks because it protects them from other predators, including lacewings, eating them. A lot of these predators are not too picky. They might even eat each other, so they can be cannibalistic. Then the larva of the lacewing down on the left bottom is very, if you were a small aphid, you would just be terrorized, I would think. They look like an alligator, and they have these big piercing mouth parts that they stick into their prey and suck out the contents. So they're very, very tough looking. The brown lacewing is similar. It's a little bit smaller and not quite as common as the green. But they're both good guys. And they eat a variety of small prey. So lots of small, soft-bodied stuff. Aphids, mealybugs, thrips, caterpillars, leafhoppers, insect eggs, these kinds of things. If you have questions as we go along, please just raise your hand and speak up, because it's important that we address your questions, or if you have experiences that you want to share about things that you've done with these. So the next group that is very common, and most of you I'm sure have seen them, you may have thought you were seeing bees when you saw them. If you've ever let your cilantro go to flower, your coriander is guaranteed to be loaded with these SYRPHID or hoverflies. And they, again, it's hard to see in these pictures, but over on the left, they do mimic bees, and they do that as a little self-protection. People think they're bees and they stay away from them, but they're actually flies. And some ways you can tell the difference if you kind of stand there and look is that their waist, instead of being as narrow and skinny as a bee or a wasp, is wider. Also, if you can get a look at their head, they have the huge fly eyes, whereas bees have, smaller eyes. And then they have very short antennae, whereas bees will have longer antennae that will come back over their head. So short antennae, big eyes, thick waist, it's a fly, okay, not a bee. Even though it has the coloration to fool you to think it's a bee. And their larvae, which are over on the right, they come in different colors. There's different species. We have green, brown, some that are kind of brown yellow. And these guys will be right in amongst the aphids. And if you ever see these little maggot-like worms in there with the aphids or other small insects, those are the larvae of the SYRPHID flies. And they're very generalist. They eat a lot of small insects. Yes?
Are these the flies that are found in two little houses, or house about to attract them to the home?
Those would be for the bees. They would be for native bees, for solitary nesting bees, yeah. So no, these guys don't nest like that, but they do come to flowers. All right. Another group these are a good size. These can be 1/2 to 3/4 inch long, even some up to as much as an inch long, are the ground beetles and tiger beetles. And these guys come out at night. They're strictly nocturnal in their activity, or dusk to dawn. And they eat bigger prey, so mid-sized prey, bigger caterpillars, cutworms, slugs. They're going to be on the ground, low. They're not going to be climbing up into plants. And they have big mandibles, big chewing mouth parts that they can chow down on lots of tasty prey. So these guys are good as well. Maybe a little intimidating when you look at them, but they are actually good. Now we're going to talk about some small ones that are up on plants that are generalist predators. So one's called the minute pirate bug, and this is one of my favorites. It, as the name suggests, it's quite minute. It's smaller than 1/4 inch. But the reason it gets its name, it's a little hard to see, but on the left, that's the adult, and it looks like a Jolly Roger flag a bit. It has a black and white pattern, and that's why it gets the name pirate bug. And they have this group of insects, of true bugs, have a piercing, sucking mouth part. It's like a straw, but instead of sticking it down in a plant to feed like an aphid or a leafhopper does, these guys stick their straw out in front, and they'll poke it into little insects and suck out the juice out of the inside. So lots of small things that they'll eat also, caterpillars, leafhoppers, scilla, aphids, etc., insect eggs. And then the nymph stage is on the right. And it looks in shape a lot like the adult, but it's more orange and red in color and doesn't have the wings with the Jolly Roger pattern. And they're very common in the garden, but probably, has anybody seen one of these before? You might, you just have to get out there and look. If you're interested in looking for some of these guys, take just a white, something light in color. We use what's called a beading tray, but you can take like a white notebook or something and hold it out under plants and just shake them over it, and you'll get a lot of little small things falling off, including things like aphids, but you'll see some of these predators that will fall off too. So go out and take a look. Here's another little guy called the big-eyed bug, and he gets his name because he has two big bulbous eyes. And he also he's a true bug, has that same piercing, sucking mouth part, eats lots of small insects and insect eggs, and they're very beneficial and very common. Here's one called the damsel bug because she's elongate, I guess, and reminded people of a very, a damsel. But it's hard to tell in the picture, but they have raptorial legs, so their front legs are actually enlarged like a mantid's legs, so they can grab their prey and hold them and eat them. And then this is the ambush bug group. So lots of different kinds of ambush bugs. The ones we have here mostly are in the brown to green color, but sometimes you'll see one that's red, red-orange, red-black. And they also have the raptorial legs. It's hard to see, but in this one on the top right, you can really see its beak. It's kind of folded down underneath, but it's very thick. And so they can actually even give people a bite. They're not after people, but if they were to get, pinched on your skin somehow, they might give you a bite as a way to say, hey, let me go. I'm trying to escape here. But, I mean, it's not common to be bitten by them or anything, but they can give you a little bite. And their camouflage, they usually hide out on leaves or flowers or places where their colors will blend in. And then they'll kind of just, jump out and attack their prey and grab them. This one right here is also an ambush bug. Yeah, they're all ambush bugs. There's different kinds. The ones that we have tend to be more like this one here that I see the most of in our gardens. Okay, and then there's some predatory mites. So you guys know what spider mites are probably. Those little dinky tiny things that you really can't see, but they make they take all the color out of the leaves on your plant and really attack your green beans and your eggplant and things like that. And there are some predatory mites that feed upon the spider mites. So we have some good guys for those as well. And then back to the parasitic wasps. There's lots of different kinds. Some that parasitize aphids, as shown in this one here. Some that parasitize caterpillars, as shown here and here. And then this one in the big picture on the top right has her ovipositor out. You can see the big long thing. It's trying to bore it into a twig where there's probably like a beetle larva inside there that it's trying to lay its egg on and parasitize. So they're quite amazing, the different things that they can do. They can bore into plant stems, into wood, all kinds of places to find the insects that they lay their eggs on. In raspberry canes, if you ever have the insect that causes the wilting at the tips, it's called the raspberry horntail. There's a whole host of wasps that lay their eggs. They drill through the raspberry cane and lay their eggs on the horntail inside. So. And then I mentioned there are also some parasitic flies. And these guys lay their eggs. It's hard to see here, but this is the head of a caterpillar. And that fly has laid its eggs on there. And the larva hatches from the egg and drills down into the body of the caterpillar and lives there and feeds, kills the caterpillar in the process, and then comes back out again as a fly. So if you ever wondered where, kind of science fiction gets its ideas for the aliens and things like that, they really did. They came from insects. They've already got down all these different ways of, do you ever see the movie Alien where it bursts out of its chest? Well, that's exactly where it came from. Okay, also hard to see, but there's also another group of organisms that are not insects themselves, but they cause diseases or attack insects. And we call these entomopathogens. So there's nematodes, little tiny microscopic roundworms that are in the soil that will get into an insect and kill it in the process. There's some fungi, bacteria, viruses. This is a picture that I took here in the bottom right of one of the European paper wasps that has a deformed wing. And the reason for that is it's been attacked by a protozoan parasite, entomopathogen. And so it can't fly very well. And of course doesn't, even though it doesn't kill it outright, it's not able to build a nest and lay its eggs and, do all the things that a normal paper wasp would do. Okay. So all of this biocontrol that we're talking about is a part of an approach that we call integrated pest management, or IPM, and that's the general area that I work in. And so it's taking biocontrol together with cultural management, so ways you can manage the plant, things you can do mechanically, and I'm going to talk about a few examples as well, using chemicals, the right kind of chemicals and in the right places where you need them, and using those together in an integrated approach that's going to keep your garden sustainable. That's what we're focused on. Okay, so one of the most helpful mechanical tools that you have available to you as a home gardener is your hose. Did you know that? Your hose is a great tool to combat insects. So buy one of these nifty hose-in nozzle sprayers that you can adjust, and you don't want to flatten your plants in your garden. I'm not telling you to go out and decimate your plants, but you want to get a hard enough spray that you're going to knock the insects off without harming the plant. And that's going to vary. A tree, of course, can take a lot harder spray than a more a vegetative plant. But a stiff spray of water, you need to do this every 2-3 days when you have an insect, like an aphid or a mite problem on a plant. And when you're talking about aphids, you want to do it before they do a lot of that curling and rolling of the leaves. You want to do it just as you start to see the problem. Get your hose, your nozzle out there and spray it down. You'll knock a lot of the aphids off. You won't knock them all off, but it will slow them down. If you do that every few days for a week or so, you have greatly reduced the population. And you can use this against spider mites as well. Mites do not like water. They don't like a wet surface. So washing down that plant every couple days is a great mechanical tool to reduce the pests. And although you may knock off some of the beneficial insects as well, they're usually able to recover and fly or crawl back up on the plant. So usually you don't kill them, at least not as much as you harm the pests that you're targeting. Has anybody ever used a hose-in sprayer for insect control? Okay. It's a great tool. Have you had good experience with it? Yeah. I mean, it's not, it's not going to be a cure-all, but it's going to help. Okay, and I'm going to talk about some traps, and I'm going to show you in just a moment, too, where we have some new video fact sheets that show you how to build homemade insect traps, including one for the European paper wasp. But first I need to tell you about paper wasps, because there's a lot of confusion out there. There's two main types that we have, and this doesn't include the hornets and some other things, but the two main types that you see most commonly are an introduced species called the European paper wasp that was started off on the east coast of North America, or was introduced from Europe and has made its way, and it's been here 8 to 10 years now. These are the ones that build their nests under the eaves, those little umbrella-shaped nests. And then there's another group called the yellow jackets, and these guys prefer to nest in the ground, although sometimes their nests will be partly above ground. The European paper wasps are thinner, a little more dainty looking when they fly. Their legs kind of dangle down. You can get stung by them, certainly, but they don't tend to be as aggressive as is the yellow jacket. The yellow jacket's in the ground. Usually you see them coming out of a hole in the ground or by a base of a plant. And these guys tend to be very protective of their nest and come after you, multiple ones, and sting you multiple times. And they're a little chunkier body. So those are the two main types we have. They're trapped in different ways. So this yellow trap that you see at the top right are what you can go and find in a store. And they tend to have, one of the most common baits they have in them is called heptobutyrate, which is a chemical that's attractive to the yellow jacket. To the yellow jacket. You can also add like pieces of hamburger meat or something to enhance that. Or even Coke, a sugary, they like the Coke too. But that trap is not good for trapping the European paper wasp. You're wasting your time with that trap if that is your target. If you want to trap the European paper wasp, you need to make a homemade trap using a pop bottle and a diluted fruit juice solution. And because these guys they will eat other insects, so they're a little bit attracted to meat, but really what they're after are fruit. And so that's the ones that are eating your peaches and your grapes and your raspberries as they get ripe. And so I have the formula there, but I'm going to show you where you can go and see this little video, YouTube-style video on the website, and I show you how to make a European paper wasp trap. Okay? Yes?
Yellow jackets are native, though, aren't they?
There are some native and some that are introduced. There's the western yellow jacket, which is a native species, and there is the German yellow jacket, which is an introduced species. And we have both. The yellow jackets are not so much into fruit. They are more into meat. It's the European paper wasp that likes the fruit. Okay, and probably what most commonly what you have as a pest around your home is the European paper wasp. Okay. Okay, so the trap is, I just showed you that. So again, okay, so I'm going to show you in just a moment where you can get the video to see this stuff. But I wanted to mention, and when we talk about chemicals, there are some chemicals that are lower toxicity, more selective, and are compatible with natural enemies and trying to grow an IPM type garden and use some of these natural services from beneficial insects. And so it's a big table here. I'm not going to read through it all, but you can go and find this slideshow on our website, which I'm going to show you. But it's things like soaps and oils, Surround, which is a kale and clay product. It's botanicals, it's microbials, azadirachtin, which is an anti-feedant that's derived from plants. It's those kinds of products that are very compatible with trying to conserve natural enemies. This next list are the kinds of insecticides that are commonly used around the home garden that do kill natural enemies. So if you're using broad sprays of Sevin or malathion or some of the pyrethroids like the bifenthrin type, which is now common as a home garden product, Ortho has one, High Yield has one, you're killing all the natural enemies as well as killing the insects that you're trying to kill. So just to be aware of that. Okay, so we've got a lot of great resources on our website. We call ourselves the Utah Pests. Growing up, my older brother always called me the pest, so I figured it was appropriate that when I was adult, I was also a pest. So our website is UTAHPESTS.USU.EDU, and you can get there through the main extension website as well. But that's a simple way to get there. And we have lots of great resources online. So here's our fact sheets. Here's answers to frequently asked questions. We have a great image gallery. We have slideshows, like this one is posted there. We have video fact sheets. We have a newsletter. And then, in addition, you can go to the diagnostic lab, the integrated pest management resources, information about bees, information about surveys that we have going on for pests in the state. So lots of great resources right there. So these are examples of fact sheets. Here's one on the yellow jackets, hornets, and paper wasps. Here's one on the European earwig, if you have earwig challenges in your garden. Here is our web page that shows you the video fact sheets that we have. We have 4 to 7 minute YouTube style videos, some on codling moth, mechanical things you can do to reduce, and trapping you can do to reduce codling moth, earwigs, the paper wasp. We have one on alfalfa sampling. That's probably not so appropriate for the home gardener, but we have a variety of things on there. And so I would encourage you to go there and watch some of these videos and learn how to make the paper wasp trap, earwig traps. We've got a variety of things there. And then we have the great pest advisory service. How many of you currently subscribe to a pest advisory? Does anybody? Okay, I see a few hands. Which ones do you subscribe to? Fruits, vegetables? Okay. So these are like free, it's a free subscription. You sign up, you go and click there to sign up for an advisory, and there's different choices. There's one on turf as well. And it comes to you during the summer growing season months just as an email, and then you can click on it and it'll take you right to where that recent advisory is posted. It tells you which insects, diseases, things are active at this time of year, what we're finding, what we've been caught in traps, and gives you some good tips about things you can do to manage those using an IPM approach. What are some of the things that you guys like about the advisories? What do they help you with?
I like it for my fruit trees, like for my apple trees, when they do codling moth, when they show when
The timing for codling moth sprays? Okay. And the peach trees? Okay.
I like
in the
that.
vegetables, what's in the trap?
what's being seen right now, and shows you pictures of damage. So you say, oh, that's the flea beetle. I didn't know that. Yeah.
I like the pictures.
Okay, lots of good pictures.
Pictures of the right kind.
Yeah.
And you know what to look for. Okay, good.
The stages of development, and so you know what you're looking at that time.
Okay. That's exactly what they're designed to be, just that timely kind of information. So those of you that aren't familiar with it, I really encourage you to go here and sign up for as many pest advisors, 4 different kinds, as many as you want. And hopefully they're not a big nuisance when they come as emails. They don't come that often that they're like clogging up your mailbox. Okay, good. So it's a great resource that is funded through our IPM program. And then our pest diagnostic webpage. Lots of you I know help with diagnostics in your county offices. And so you know that we have a diagnostic lab on campus. And so if you need backup support to help you, this is the resource. But just a couple things that Ryan has just recently put up there. He's got this great website on hobo spider. So all pictures of hobo spiders from all different angles and showing you the heads and the eyes and the teeth, the chelicerae, and so how you can identify a hobo spider, and lots of great resources on hobo spiders, because right now is a big time. You get lots of those coming in. Bed bug travel tips. We want Ryan to go. We want him actually to make a TV series about this. He's so good. All these little bed bug travel tips. When you go into a hotel room, what do you look for if you're looking for bed bug problems? So anyway, he's got some really great, cute resources on there. I like the way he does them. I'm going to skip that. So then just to end, we have a lot of great slideshows. Over 100 different slideshows have been posted. And so if you go to that slideshow link, and this one is posted there under Insects Beneficials. And so you can see all these, because you couldn't see the colors at all today, I apologize. And you can see what these insects look like with good color. So I have a question to ask, and I have a prize to give out. So hopefully you were paying attention. So this is a book that was authored by Erin Hodson, who was a former entomologist here with USU Extension, and she's now gone on to Iowa State University, and she is their soybean entomologist there. But she did this really nice book that has some nice pictures of beneficial insects, and her book is called Gardening with Good Bugs. So her name is Erin Hodson. It's Hodgson, but that's how it's pronounced, Hodson. You don't really say the G. So I think of a good question to ask, and whoever answers it first and correctly, I will give them as a prize this copy. Okay, so do you remember the one group of predators that I talked about that they're cryptic and camouflage, and then they kind of leap out and grab their prey, and they have big raptorial legs? So what is the name of that group? Ambush bugs. Very good. Got a winner. Right. I also just brought 2 books, not to give away, but just to show you. These are 2 great resources that I use a lot for answering gardening insect questions. This one is part of the University of California series. This one's focused on the natural enemies, so it's got lots of good pictures of all the different insects we've talked about today, and shows you their different life stages. In fact, some of the slide pictures I got off their website, so they're the actual ones that are in here. And that's a good resource. And then, if you're not familiar with it, Whitney Cranshaw, who's an entomologist at Colorado State University, he actually spoke at this conference last time we had it in Logan, I think. Were you here? Were you an extension agent then, Tom? Before Tom's time. You were here? Okay, I was here too. But anyway, he's got this great gardening book, insect gardening book, and a lot of it's on the pest insects. But at the very back, he's got a nice section on the beneficial insects. So if you haven't seen that before, I just have it here. You can take a look at and see if that's a book you're interested in. They carry it, well, we don't have hardly any local bookstores anymore. They used to carry it in our local bookstores, but you can certainly order it online as well. This one's called Garden Insects of North America, and I'll just set them right here if you guys want to come up and take a look. Are there any questions? Yeah. The big yellow ones, the orb web. I used to get them a lot in my garden in River Heights. I moved away, and I live up north now, and I don't see them up there, but I don't know if that's because they're gone or just they're not up there.
My office every year.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very common.
And we get the cat face too. Yeah, the cat face spiders. Yeah. Yeah. Other questions? All right. Well, thanks. You guys have been a great. Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't see this.
I heard about wiping out the plants with soap and water to get rid of pests.
Mm-hmm.
Will that cause a bunch of
It can. Wiping down an outdoor plant is a pretty big, or multiple plants is a pretty big undertaking. I usually reserve that for like a house plant when I get some mites or scale or something on a house plant, and I know it's just a certain amount of surface area and I can manage that. Outdoors, I would recommend over wiping down. I would recommend spraying with a soap solution. And yes, it can harm the predators or beneficials, but usually they might fly away or move away and not be as affected. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, you guys. You've been a great audience, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Get that off. You might give this to. This is just a gift.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.